Okay, hello, WashU parents and family members. My name is Mimi Mudd, and I'm the Assistant Director of Parent and Family Programs and Student Transitions and Family Programs. I want to welcome you to our pre-recorded version of the Family Webinar Series for Fall 2023. I am joined by my colleague, Dr. Andrew Collings, who is the Director of the Learning Center. So this is our conversation about academic support, and we're focusing on the Learning Center in this video. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Andrew so he can share information, an overview about the resources and opportunities available in the Learning Center, and then we will go into a few questions. So Andrew, passing it over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mimi. It's a pleasure being here, and yeah, nice to be able to be speaking to parents about what is available in terms of academic support for their children here at WashU. Yeah, so just as a brief overview, the Learning Center is part of the larger Center for Teaching and Learning here on campus, which sort of assists both professors in terms of classroom support, as well as from a pedagogy standpoint, helping them be better teachers, and then also helps the students to become better learners. So we are one of the largest undergraduate student employers on campus. We have about 350 students who work for us in any given academic year, and they work across many different programs that are all designed to help students both in terms of content support, academic support for their the courses that they're taking, but also providing general mentorship and advice for how to be a successful student at the college level and at WashU in particular. So our oldest and biggest program is called Peer-Led Team Learning, also referred to as PLTL. It's something that students sign up for in the first week of class. They are then assigned to a group that meets on the weekends or Monday evenings, and they work through a set of problems, very challenging problems that require them to collaborate and think critically and develop those problem-solving skills that are so important in any classroom. They meet for 2 hours a week in groups of 8 to 10 students, as I mentioned, working from those packets. If they have a certain number of attendances over the course of the semester, they actually receive a credit for participating in PLTL. So typically that's there are 11 sessions over the course of the semester. If they attend at least 9 of them, they'll get a course credit that will go towards the 120 they need to graduate. The courses that are supported are both of the general chemistry sequences, all of the calculus courses, and then introductory physics. All right, so PLTL was a little more structured. Residential peer mentoring is on the opposite side of the spectrum. In terms of structure, it is a drop-in, informal setting. As the name residential implies, the hours are held on the South 40 in the residential college spaces, so in classrooms, lobbies, seminar rooms, study rooms. It's open to anyone who's enrolled in the courses that we support. Students can come in whenever they want, leave whenever they want. What topics are covered is really up to the students themselves and what they want to work on. So, if you want to study for the upcoming quiz, that's perfectly fine. If you want to review homework, that's perfectly fine. If you just want to hang out and chat and have some candy and snacks, that's also cool. Yeah, and those residential peer mentoring sessions are offered for the general chemistry sequences as well as calculus 1 through 3. Similar to RPM is drop-in academic mentoring. The real distinction is that most of the sessions are not held on the South 40. They're held in classroom spaces on the main Danforth campus, and there's a much broader range of courses that are supported. Those include, a lot of the intro STEM courses, those big lecture introductory surveys, but you can also see that, we've expanded to biology, organic chemistry, which is chemistry 261, 262. We're going into the social sciences with psychology, engineering with computer science, and engineering 131, foreign languages, but also you see also some humanities courses that we've started to offer support for as well. And then the last program I want to mention is academic skills peer coaching. So as you've seen, a lot of our other support is based around specific courses. Academic skills peer coaching is the exception to that. So this is something that is more based on particular, generally applicable skills, which we'll go to here in a second when we go to the next slide. But the way that you participate in peer coaching is you sign up for an appointment. So it's a little bit different than some of our other programs, which are drop in or sign up at the beginning of the semester. Most of the hours are held in the late afternoon and into the evenings, and we've got about 6 peer coaches who are trained in a lot of different areas and ready to help with pretty much whatever you might need assistance with. Maybe if you could go to the next slide. The big ones, right, are time management, study strategies, note taking, reading, comprehension, and strategies. But we also work with students on test anxiety, procrastination, persistence, and motivation. I mean, even things like, I'm really scared of my professor and I need help drafting an email to them to ask for an extension or to let them know that I'm going to be missing class. Can you help me with that? So we can pretty much anything that a student might need help with, we can assist with. Or if we can't help them, we can point them in the direction of someone who can. Our offices are located on the lower level of the Mallinckrodt Center. Most students will probably know that as the building where Subway is or the bookstore. So if you tell them that, then they'll kind of know where we're at. We're located in a suite next to the Writing Center and College Writing Program. And our office hours are 9 to 4 every week, and students can reach out to us at any time, and we usually can get back to them in 24 to 48 hours, the latest, by email or by phone.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrew, for all that information. Now we'll get into some of those commonly asked questions. And for the parents and family members to know, these have been pulled from previous webinars on this topic and just questions that we tend to get. So the first one is, what individual tutoring options are available for students both on and off campus?
All right, that's a good question. I'll just say that at the Learning Center, we do not have any guaranteed one-on-one or individual tutoring that's available, because a lot of our programming is based around the a collaborative group learning model and the benefits of collaboration. However, if there are students who are struggling in a course, or maybe who are really dreading going into, say, organic chemistry because they had a tough time in general chemistry, or they just didn't have, a super strong background in math, or whatever the case might be, and they're taking a college level class, they can reach out to us at the Learning Center, and we can see about getting them set up with some sort of, if not individual, a more like personalized or more individualized support system than something, say, like PLTL or RPM, which a lot of those sessions, the PLTL can be daunting with its structure and the packets. RPM, especially like when there's a big exam coming up, they can be like really, really busy. A lot of those drop-in sessions are like sometimes pretty empty, so you can use those pretty consistently to get, if not individualized, like pretty close to it support. Outside of the Learning Center, there is engineering undergraduate student services, which I believe has tutoring, both group and individual, and that's for students who are in McKelvey in the engineering school. But it's also available to students from other schools who are taking McKelvey classes. And then there is, I believe the Olin Business School also has a tutoring program that is for a few, like general like prereqs. So it's for business school students who are taking like calculus, for instance. But most of the support is based around those big business classes that everyone takes, like intro to management, macro and microeconomics, things like that.
Great, thank you. And then I noticed the Learning Center in their programs uses the word mentoring. Can you tell us why the Learning Center calls it mentoring and not tutoring?
Yeah, so there's a couple reasons why. I mean, so I'm a historian by training, so I like to look back at the origins of these things. So back when we changed from tutoring to mentoring, I think tutoring had sort of like a pejorative or negative connotation to it. So this was back in like the 90s, early 2000s, and people thought that if you needed tutoring, that like you probably shouldn't be at WashU. And that obviously is something that we disagree with entirely. But there was this sense that like if you need tutoring, it's a sign of weakness, it's a sign of failure. And so in order to sort of change that, we switched the terminology to mentoring, which I think is much more positive in connotation. It's more asset based rather than deficit based. And we're thinking that the thinking was that it would promote help-seeking behavior, which I think is one of the keys to success in college, is knowing when and how to ask for help. Another reason that I think mentoring is an apt term is because I think tutoring focuses on like the connotation is that it's focusing on just the content, just what's being talked about in class. Our mentors are trained to not just think about the content itself, but the entire academic experience, right? So working with students, talking with them about what resources that are at their disposal, what's available to them, what resources they're using, what sorts of strategies they're using outside of class, what cognitive and metacognitive processes are they using, but also thinking about the entire like social and environmental elements that play such a huge factor in the academic experience and how each individual approaches their classes, approaches a certain topic. And I think mentoring encapsulates it in a much more meaningful way than like tutoring.
Thank you. Our next question is about support for students with accommodations. So does the Learning Center provide any type of specialized support for students who have accommodations for specific courses?
Yep. So we don't have like a specific program per se, but we do, students with accommodations are folks who we sort of prioritize when it comes to, I mentioned like people reaching out for like individualized support. So if a student has accommodations, they should definitely reach out to us. And, we can also, I mentioned peer coaching. That's something that they can certainly take advantage of. And that we would, prioritize for that, or for the more individualized or small group course support if it's available. We're also willing as the professional staff to meet with students who have accommodations and work with them, especially if they're usually there's not issues with instructors and getting accommodations, but we can advocate on behalf of the students beyond just sort of the technical aspects of like accommodations, like advocating for students to the instructors in terms of like the learning experience, right? So there's also disability resources, which handles the accommodations and the notifications that are sent to instructors, but then we can also be there to support students, and we work closely with disability resources in that regard.
Great. And then the last question, So a parent or family member might be having a student who was very high achieving in high school, but then is starting to struggle academically at WashU, whether it's their first year or whether they've been here for a year or two. Is that a typical experience? And what is the first step you'd suggest to parents to help encourage their students? Like, what should they have their students do?
That's a great question. I think that students have this feeling when they're struggling that they're the only person, right? And it's because they know 100% of their story and what's going on for them. And, they know about, 25 or 30% just from like reading everyone else's faces. They seem, everyone else is cool and collected and calm and they're doing great. And I'm the only one struggling here, right? So imposter syndrome starts to creep in. Do I belong here? Was there a mistake? Did someone, accidentally put my application on the accept pile, somewhere in the admissions process by mistake? Has someone been secretly paying people off for me? These self-doubts start to creep in. But I'm just here to tell everyone that that is not the case. Everyone who is here belongs here, and they are not alone in struggling. This college, high school to college is a gigantic transition. Um, you know, the biggest one I think is in terms of time management, right? You're going from, in most high school experiences, you're going from where you're in class from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m., just going straight to class. Assignments, quizzes, things like that are all like sort of on a weekly basis. Now you're in a college environment where you maybe have a couple hours of class a day. You might not have class on Fridays. You may have, class all morning, afternoons off. It's all over the place. And there's no real accountability mechanisms like on a weekly basis. So it's up to the student to set their own accountability, to set their own schedule, to be, on top of things, because the assessments, you might only have a couple every year or every semester, right? A couple quizzes, a couple exams, a couple papers. So the students themselves are responsible for their learning. So it's a combination of, more independence and less structure. And that can be overwhelming to a lot of people. A lot of people, like I mentioned earlier, like they're wearing a mask, like they're presenting as cool, calm, and collected. And so I think the most important thing is to like talk about these struggles, to ask, whether that's like asking for help or just, talking with friends about, hey man, I'm having a tough time. I might, can you help me out? Do you have any recommendations? And you might find out by talking to other people that they're going through the same thing. And like, whew, thank you. I've been thinking that I'm alone in this. Thank you for admitting it. And that's another part of why we promote group learning programming, is because I think, when people go and are in that group, they can see that, it's not just them. Like people have similar questions to them. People are having similar struggles, and they can empathize with each other and provide each other recommendations for how to, overcome those obstacles. So I think that, the benefits of collaborative learning and collaborative environments, that goes beyond just like the content itself. It's all about the experience as a whole, and those connections and solutions that we can find by working with other people.
Great. Thank you, Andrew, for all those answers and the helpful information you shared at the beginning. Parents and families, we hope you found this pre-recorded video informative and are enjoying this option part of the family webinar series. Before closing out, I do want to plug our next family webinar series, which will be live at 5:30 p.m. Central Time on November 8th. And that's a conversation about study abroad. We hope to see you all there. And I just want to thank Andrew again, and I hope everyone has a good rest of their day or night whenever they're watching this. All right, thanks.